This podcast episode is sponsored by ChiefAIOfficer.com, offering training and certification through the International Association of Chief AI Officers. Interested in a new career or leveling up your value in the marketplace? ChiefAIOfficer.com can help. The following is a conversation with Karl Yeh. Karl's the Chief AI Officer and co-founder of a consultancy called 0 to 60 AI. They bridge the gap between AI and traditional industries. As a consultant, Karl focuses on medium-sized businesses and multiple industries that happen to be in his local market. In this episode, we dive into Karl's unique approach to AI implementation, how he navigates the complexities of personalized AI solutions, the challenges of integrating cutting-edge tech into established businesses, and the strategies he employs to drive meaningful efficiency and growth. Karl's insightful perspectives are informed by his hands-on experience, giving him a deep understanding of how AI can transform any business from the ground up. Welcome to Using AI at Work. I'm your host, Chris Daigle. Each week, we'll be learning how today's business owners, entrepreneurs, and ambitious professionals are getting more done with smart use of tomorrow's tech. Let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome to the episode. I'm really excited to have Karl as our guest today because he's doing AI at a level that most individuals out there aren't. And we were just having this conversation before we went live with this, like the information and the perspective that Karl is sharing, and particularly in LinkedIn where I follow him, it's priceless stuff because it's not coming from opinion. It's coming from, hey, I'm in the trenches. I'm dealing with clients all the time. Here's what's really happening. Here's discoveries I've made by being put into challenging situations with clients. So I'm really looking forward to sharing Karl's perspective with everybody today. So Karl, as we get started, why don't you just let everybody know who you are, where you're at, what does a day look like in the life of an AI expert?
Yeah, I never ever consider myself necessarily an expert, more of like on the same journey as everybody else, and maybe just been there a little bit longer, and I had some really interesting engagements with clients and people, and I just want to bring that back. So I'm the Chief AI Officer and co-founder of a company called 0 to 60 AI, and really our focus is to help businesses get the benefits of artificial intelligence and cut kind of through the hype. And we do it through strategy, education, and implementation. And really for us, like we're a little bit unique in that our target is more medium sized businesses. So anywhere between under 500, ideally. We do deal with enterprises, but very, very more focused on the medium-sized businesses. Also, traditional businesses, oil and gas, construction, manufacturing, flooring, real estate, any of the industries that most people would think those people are like the laggards, the last ones who are going to adopt some of these tech. And I think like it's a space that I feel there's an opportunity because not very many people go there. Everyone's trying to target the enterprise and tech companies and so on. And so kind of the day in the life of it, we're either prospecting, meeting different businesses, municipalities, different organizations, or actually doing the implementation. So AI automations, digital assistants, training, doing strategy work, building roadmaps, and really doing what we're finding is AI is very personalized to the individual, personalized to the team, personalized to maybe the company, and personalized to the industry. And what I mean by that is the same two people in an organization, same role in the same industry, could be using AI very differently because it helps them in a very specific way, where you can't just drag and drop this type of process and this type of tool exactly the same way. It's very personalized, very tailored. And that's what we're finding in these industries. You can't just drop the same automation. Like I see a lot of like posts about this automation is going to get you $5,000, $10,000. We're like, well, no, because that necessarily automation doesn't fit with how this
Yeah.
business, how this unit operates. You can't just drop that, which means it's a brand new engagement. So, and taking that into account, especially in our target industry, yeah, it's very hands on with the clients, especially those in those industries who aren't in the AI bubble, who at times don't even care that whatever the latest AI tool is like, hey, can you
Yeah.
help me meet my margin?
Yeah.
I don't care about voice, canvas. I don't care about that. Like, could AI help me improve this? And that's really the day in the life of in our focus.
Before we go on, like, how did you arrive here? What were you doing prior to November of 2022 when GPT 3.5 was released?
So a little bit of history. I don't know if you remember 2018, Sundar Pichai, Google I/O. I remember I was seated too. I was at a company called Brookfield, and they he did a demo on stage where he reserved, I don't know, a party of 10, I think, and used AI to call a
Yes.
restaurant. Do you remember
Yes.
that?
Yes. Yes.
I remember where I was, and I was like, that is gonna change the world, and it's mind blowing. Before everybody's X post is mind blowing, and here's 10 ways it's just changed the world or whatever that is.
Yeah.
So I remember that, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. I got to really dig deep into this. So dig deep, learn about DeepMind, learned about all the different players. And at the time, it was more of just slowly doing it, kind of testing some tools, GPT-2,
Yeah.
the first version of Stable Diffusion. And don't get me wrong, you knew right away,
It
none of this
wasn't
is
there.
usable. I was like, oh, we're still a decade away.
Yeah.
And so you kind of played with it and you're like, oh, this looks like all claymation.
Yeah.
Very funny stuff. Then obviously November 30th, like just happened, and it got me thinking, wait a minute. This has opportunities to really change. So I started creating some content around it. But then businesses asked me, hey, could you come and speak to some of this? Sure. And then businesses started saying, hey, could you build some of what you're talking about? And at that time, I took my first RAG course
Hmm.
from a guy named Mayo. And he was one of the very first ones to actually, you know, build Python. Like, it's like, oh, this is interesting. So we built some of that for some clients, and it started snowballing to the point, I think I met my business partner. We've been working together since, like, I don't know, 2013, 14, but really made it official because he sold his company and he said, okay, we got to go all in. And that was like
Nice.
last November, because we were on a road show since July or June last year, doing bits and pieces. And even I was like, I'm not even sure, but he kind of saw it. He's been an entrepreneur for, I don't know, 35, 40 years, multiple businesses, and he wanted to go. So I said, okay, let me give a date. Let me target a date that let's go all in and let's kind of build it towards there. And yeah, that date passed and we're full go, and we've been busy ever since.
So what were you, if I would have talked to you in 2018 and said, what do you do? What would that answer have been?
So at that time, we just sold a SaaS company, and I was actually working with. I made a kind of a deal with the vice president of marketing at the time at Brookfield, where I'm like, hey, I'll work on your mostly marketing operations,
Okay.
like really into the digital, and we were working on that because I really didn't know what I was wanting to do. I was like, well, do I start a new company? Do I, because I'm, I have a background in history and marketing, so like, do I
Okay.
go do there? So yeah, and that's where I was in 2018.
So now, though, the work that you do with your clients isn't marketing specific.
No.
So you're doing full enterprise evaluation of AI application.
Yes.
And one of the things that you mentioned when we were getting, before we turned on the recorder, was that most, if not all of your clients, you see them in person. They're
Yes.
regionally specific, which is
Yeah.
kind of unique.
Yeah, well, it actually turned out because so my business partner has been a so I'm in Calgary, Alberta, and he has been in the business. So he owned a video agency that has worked. That's his target market, the mid-sized, um, non-traditional market, heavily in the Calgary area. And then just all the connections that I've made, like for example, Brookfield Residential, local builder in Alberta, um, even the tech company I worked for, Benevity, headquartered in Calgary, even though it's more of a global company. But then we thought one of the easiest ways we to get the message out there or wanted to showcase ourselves is the local chambers, the local industry associations, the Rotary clubs. My business partner just opened the doors like, hey, present here, let's present here, let's present here. So
Yeah.
it just ended up that what we found is when we go local, it's awesome just meeting, going to these businesses, learning what they do, or whether you've known them or not, and just sitting in real life is just, I don't know, there's something a little bit to it than doing a virtual meeting. And what we found is we close much higher in
Yes.
person than virtually. It's not even close. Like sitting down with people and talking about AI, there's just something about it and just works for us.
That's a path that has been mimicked by several of our chief AI officers. They started in the local environment, Better Business Bureau, Chamber of Commerce, Economic Development Councils
Yep.
in their areas. And that turned into, honestly, more business than they would ever generate from LinkedIn ads or being
Yep.
a thought leader and all that stuff. So I, I find it fascinating because I've come from a marketing background as well. And with marketing, you think scale,
Yeah.
right? And this is not scalable, right? Like
No.
Calgary's only so big.
Yeah.
But it keeps you busy. Now, one of the things, it's this concept that I've been kind of noodling on for a few months now. And I see it like in generative AI right now, uh, for lack of a better analogy, it's kind of like everybody who is like a you or like a me, we're holding a lottery ticket. There's going to be a lot of money made in this space by being the person who is bringing the knowledge, bringing the implementation to these companies. However, what I see is that a lot of people who are good at this, the natural path for them is to go and do consulting. Now, the challenge with consulting is scale, like bandwidth, right? There's only so many Carls that can go out there and do this. Um, and what ends up happening, and right now it's awesome because there's not a lot of people like you out there. Every day that changes. 6 months from now, there'll be more. A year from now, there'll be even more, right? It's a very inefficient market, and people like you and some of our chief AI officers are able to take advantage of that because like people don't know where to go. Oh, he's local. Let's
Yeah.
talk to him, right? So how are you going to, I guess, get the most juice out of the squeeze here, um, from this fact that you're early in, a lot of blue ocean, but that it won't be that case forever? How are you going to get the most out of your business result or rewards from your business,
I
in that
I
paradigm?
think there's that because of that history in marketing, right? So you kind of understand if you are top of mind whenever companies are ready to buy or ready to engage, ready to have a conversation, everything that you've done to that point they'll remember. So whether this podcast, whether our own podcast, our own show or YouTube show, creating the content, and what because we're trying to do this locally, all the presentations we do, all even our webinars are very local. I don't really care about reach outside of Alberta. It's like
Yeah.
let's target these specific companies. And what we find is a lot of them like there's people in them that do engage in LinkedIn a lot, but most of them there's no way we would have reached them through any of the markets outside of talking and referrals
Yeah.
and being part of those commerce. Like for example, like, oh, the tourism head of the hotel association. Well, the only reason we knew him was because we presented at a Rotary and he's part
Yeah.
of the Rotary.
Yeah.
No way LinkedIn would hit that. No way none of this would have worked. And so to us, from a blue ocean perspective, I think we have a little bit of time because of our target industries, because of we're focused on local, and we know that there may I haven't seen very many consultants, and not that there won't be, but I feel a lot of them, the consulting is, I don't know if you've noticed this, a lot of marketing agencies and even people are
Yeah.
targeting marketing
Yeah.
agencies to add in AI um, components to them. But we're like, that's fine because that's just still marketing.
Yeah.
This is why we hit every single piece of every single thing, every single operation department in companies. And the second thing too is what we find is a lot of companies say they do AI. They're just like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
we have this taken care of.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? It's like, oh, we bought this company that's helping us with AI. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
that's amazing. And that's what we're finding is like, like products are reaching them.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, the home builder product, here's a product to help, AI specific product to help home builders. I'm like, that's cool. Do that. Here's more of a broad operation that you can use. And we can, I think what we're trying to position ourselves to is being that AI advisor to these companies, not necessarily a Salesforce or HubSpot implementer, because we know the tool. I don't know what the tools will be in 3
Sure.
months. So what our goal is, hey, let's give you a foundation of what we call the 10 to 40%. Could we increase your efficiency of productivity by 10 to 40%? Because we know that's reliable and
Yep.
that is scalable. That's not automating everything. That's not taking over anybody's jobs. That's more of, hey, making your business use AI really efficiently. Could we do that? And then maybe test some of the new crazy stuff if it works for your company, but it's still grounded in, hey, how is AI actually helping your business meet your revenue targets, pipeline targets, customer service targets? And it's still grounded on that because the presidents, the CEOs, the executives we talk to, that's still their focus. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, this is because unless you ground it in that, then you're just testing a bunch of AI tools, which
Yeah.
is fun, but doesn't do anything.
So this is interesting. So you're not necessarily coming in with AI being the message. It's more 10 to 40% optimization, enhancement, efficiency. That's more of the message, with uh, AI being the vehicle that supports the 10 to 40%, as compared to companies thinking, hey, I don't know what it's going to do, but we need AI, right? Like, it's two different
Yeah,
stories.
exactly. And we've run into companies that have thought AI could solve their problem. And we said two things. One, no, because your expectation of what we can deliver, yes, we could take your money and take the contract, but it won't help you because you have more of a strategy problem. You have a marketing problem. You have a business operation problem. You have an HR problem. AI can't, AI is not good enough now. I think unless we have AGI,
Yeah.
that's not going to help you.
Yeah.
So today, we recommend you go with this marketing company, or I would suggest you do this and bring us in maybe later because that's more important. The other thing we do is, hey, we have this business problem. Here's a, we think, can AI do this? And we're like, well, that custom build wise we could. And then we ask our devs, what do you think it'll take to build this thing? Not 200K, 500K today. And then so we bring that number back and we say, you could build this, but because AI is moving so fast, don't build anything. We
Nice.
recommend you wait 3 months, 6 months, because most likely something's going to be there. Like, for example, Cohere's new multimodal AI search. There was one company we worked with. They have a problem, just like anybody, with trying to find certain image files
Yeah.
in a directory that been there for 20 years
Yeah.
and folders. And the problem with building or moving it to a DAM system is you kind of still have to tag it. So, but I'm like, this thing just solves that because it can recognize your images. Maybe not 100%, but 60%, 40% gets you enough of the way that you don't have to dig for an hour trying
Yeah.
to find the specific thing to recreate. So that's what I mean. Like, you may just want to hold off just a little bit.
Makes
And
perfect sense.
yeah,
So let's say you present at the business luncheon. Um, where are you starting? Do you have kind of like a standard, like, hey guys, this is the 101 stuff, or do you tailor it
oh,
to the industry, or where do you start when you're doing a broad group?
a broad group. So I've seen so many presentations that do the 101, and that's cool. Like, they show a bit of use cases, a bit of like, here's where it is. I was actually at we got invited to a major brand conference in Banff, and there was one session I just wanted to attend. It was called AI and AI powered advertising. I was like, oh, I want to see what the. But that whole session was, I think, 15 minutes of that session was talking about how AI is like the car and electricity, and Ford and all that stuff. I'm like, that's cool, but I need to know how this is actually useful to the business. So that's what we do. Our presentation is, hey, we're going to show you today actual business use cases. I want you to think about it from the lens of your business. Is there data involved? Is there repetition involved? Is prediction involved? But look at it from the lens. And then we show them a variety of use cases from our clients. So it's like, here's this use case, here's AI research, here's some digital assistants, here's a custom build, here's voice and video that our clients are actually using. I want you. And then what happens is those presidents, CEO, operations people start thinking of, oh, could you do this? Could you do
Yeah.
this? Could you do this? And that's literally just a check mark of all the things that we could potentially pilot with that company. And that's it. That is a majority of our presentation is demoing business use cases instead of trying to 101 it, because the people that we talk to don't really care.
Care.
Sorry,
Yeah.
they don't care. They
Makes
don't.
perfect sense. Yeah. They just want the
It's like,
result.
yeah. So it's like, how can this thing help me launch a new product? And for example, so we were at a meeting yesterday. And it's like, oh, so you're telling me that through voice and video, I don't need to travel to Lethbridge, Edmonton, Brooks. I can just have an AI avatar and use Notebook LM
Yeah.
to talk about this new product launch and just send it, and then use a digital assistant to have people ask questions and train people up. Yes, that is a legit business use case for the
Yep.
tools, right? That's straight. Oh, and then, oh, we can make it fun. And then we showed them a little bit about Act One. Oh, we can make it fun because our mascot is this, and we can just upload. I'm like, yeah, sure. And that's what that's what it means
Makes
by
perfect
actually like
sense.
business use case.
Yeah. So when you've done the presentation, the CEO or the decision maker comes up to you afterwards and says, "Hey, can I get a minute?" How do
Yeah.
those conversations typically go?
They typically go, hey, could you present to our team, our
Okay.
executive team? Could you present to our leaders? Could you, and we want to, can you tailor it a little bit to our business? And it's really kind of the same presentation. We do add some tailored bits to, depends on what industry they're
Industry.
in.
Yeah.
And then they start asking us the exact questions that you said. It's like, could it do this? Could we do this? Could we do this? And then from there, the one thing we try to avoid is trying to build things out right away, because everyone
Yeah.
wants to get to
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
but you still have to have the strategy bit.
Yep.
So our really focus is, hey, let's deep dive into your departments. We'll just press record, whether it's virtual or in person. We'd like to do in person.
Yeah.
We like to meet the people. We just sit there, ask all these questions about how their process works. They tell us. It's all recorded. And once we have that, we actually want to build the company a strategy, a roadmap of what we think, plus in agreement with everybody. Let's start with 3 to 5 pilots. When we say pilot specifically, because we don't want to scare anybody,
Yeah.
and we want to ensure that if it doesn't work, it's super simple to fold up. But if it does work, then we have another conversation. How would you like to scale this? Do you scale it in phases? So we aren't overwhelmed, the company isn't overwhelmed, and they get some people to actually work on it. That's for most people lower risk,
Yeah.
but has high potential. And that's
Yeah.
usually where we start.
So, how much of what they ask of you is upskilling their own staff as compared to you coming in and black boxing it?
It depends on the business. And we always ask this too: what is your level of AI use? Because it varies from company to company to
Sure.
company. And then what we want to do is enable the champions or the advocates in their business, because we want to work closely with them. Because none of this will work if there isn't a subject matter
Yeah.
expert and there's someone who's constantly on people talking about AI in that company. So once we connect with that person, or build those people, then it's more of, does the company actually want us? We recommend this part of our strategy doc is, hey, we'll include 1 or 2 training sessions with your team. We can definitely talk about more, just to level up.
Yeah.
um, Whether it's a simple prompting, maybe advanced prompting, maybe it's understanding different use cases, how to think about using AI in the business, or showcasing them different tools, different processes other than probably what they're just using, which is most of the time just ChatGPT, free too, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're enjoying this episode and want to learn more about how to start using AI at work, we've made it easy for you. For just $1, you can have full access to the Chief AI Officer community, which will give you additional training, custom software, daily training calls on AI tools, using AI automations, getting more from your ChatGPT sessions, and the business of being an AI consultant. Simply go to chiefaiofficer.com/insiders to accelerate your AI journey. Now, back to the episode. So you come into the companies, you start with strategy. What does, and I know that we talked about like some process mining to identify some pilot projects, but do you do a sit down with the company just to make sure that they're clear on where they want to go with or without AI?
Of course, because we sit down with their presidents and the business heads or the department heads, and really it's more of, hey, what's your business goals? What are your quarterly? What's your QBRs? What's your annual goals? What are the things that, from a business perspective, you are focused on? Where do you think AI can help? And let's kind of bridge that and have that conversation, because sometimes a big thing for us is managing expectations,
Yeah.
because we have run into sometimes where the client has this grand expectation of what AI could do,
Yeah.
probably fed by the hype,
Yep.
probably fed by watching a lot of movies in the
Yep.
past too, and thinking that certain tools can do this stuff. And it's like, no, it actually can't do what you're just saying. We're still a little bit away. We can piecemeal that entire process that you just described. But again, let's just start with a 10 to 40% and kind of incrementally work our way up, rather than try to promise the entire thing. And at the same time, we all have to realize these tools are changing, and most companies are at the front end of implementation.
Yeah.
So obviously, they're not. You're going to have the good with the bad. And just as long as they know that, they're more acceptable to taking the risk, rather than trying to promise them that this is going to be the outcome. It's like, no, this is why there's extensive testing internally. If we deploy tools or automations, then we also extensive monitoring at the very least for the first month to make sure those it's stable enough to do that 10 to 40%.
And that the first time I saw that 10 to 40% was actually from a post that you did. And I like that a lot because what we teach our chief AI officers is that when you go into that sit down, arithmetic's not an opinion. If you've got skeptical individuals in there and you give them the hype, they can be like, but if I can show you data that says in the oil and gas industry and our examples, this is what's happened. And real estate, this is what's happened. It's not my opinion anymore, right? So we always encourage them to go in with some sort of a forecasted ROI. The number that we tell them is 20% because any process KPI that gets AIified, it's going to have like 20% is safe. This 10 to 40 range, I like that a lot. Do you feel that you're underselling it when you come in at 10 to 40%? Or do you think that that's, because if I said, look, 100% improvement, they're going to say bullshit, right?
Of course. Yeah.
So do you feel that 10 to 40 is like a no brainer, or that you're going to blow that out of the water? Or
no, because we've every single one of our clients, it's been consistent. The program, there are been outliers. There are certain things that, oh, that's 80%. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
There's certain things that clients are like, well, it's only 5%, but it works out. But we're consistently in that range. And where I actually got that is when I was still working at a SaaS company, we were actually talking with the OpenAI product team, and I was talking about this 10 to 40. It's like, hey, is it 10 to 40%? Is that consistent? And they're like, that's exactly the spot where we like to tell our enterprise clients, like, this is where AI actually works today, that 10 to 40, because sometimes there's really big expectations.
Yeah.
And when you get there, you get in trouble because that's where, oh, this doesn't work. This sucks. It doesn't do what I want it to do, because you're trying to automate more than what the tool can reliably do. It may be able to do it once.
Yeah.
But you have to, can you repeat it so many times and scale it at that level? That's what I mean.
So that 10 to 40%, when you present that to the decision makers, is their reaction skeptical? Is their reaction like, are they underwhelmed by that number because they think that AI is going to come in and do, backflips, or what is that interaction like when you share that with them?
I provide the 10 to 40% one as setting the context, but really back to our presentation, when we showcase all the business use cases, in their mind, they've already kind of
done the math.
That's why I set the context. And then when they see it, they could either, it falls perfectly within that 10 to 40, or they have bigger expectations we want to bring right back. They're like, no, we can't do that. Come back. And we always say, hey, this is why we start with a pilot. Can we start there? Can we start slow first and kind of build on top of whatever we're doing? Because again, AI is moving so fast, but your company is not open AI. So that's not your goal. And that's usually where we begin.
The decision making, like, when the bigger the business, the longer the sales cycle, typically for something like a consulting package or introducing new software or whatever. Are you finding, and with your background in software, I'm sure you've got plenty of experience with that. Are you finding that the AI conversation, does it move faster, like the decision making, or is it still one of those things we need to evaluate this? Thank you for your time.
That depends on if they have a legal team. That depends on if they have an IT team.
Yeah.
But this is why we want to play in the 500 employee or less. That's why we want to play in medium size, because whenever we work with enterprise, there's a lot more people involved. Even if the CEO is like, hey, I want this execute, I want this. It doesn't matter. There's so many things that have to go into it. And then security wise, you have to have a conversation about, hey, data privacy, security for custom builds. do you want to build local? Do you, or are you, how comfortable are you using the APIs? How comfortable are you using the use case? And this is so new for a lot of companies that it'll always default to, oh, the typical IT buying
Right.
process is this.
Right.
How come you're only charging this? Because we charge maintenance, but it's like that seems a little too low. We're like, yeah, but we're only on 3-month cycles, and we actually want you to review what happened, because I don't know what's going to happen in 3 months, and the solution we agreed upon to implement, that could potentially change.
Sure.
And I want to make sure you as a company have the flexibility to move, rather than we've signed a deal like a Microsoft deal
Yeah.
that we're stuck. And
Yeah.
now we've stuck with the tool, and now we're handcuffed and we can't do what we want to do. So we try to get the companies as flexible as possible. And we find that people like it because they're not bound to, it isn't like a typical product where, like, let's say a HubSpot, you have to sign
Yeah.
and you're stuck with it for at least a year, like
Yeah.
maybe two. Well, we don't want to do that. We want to be super like, oh, we'll switch, because that's where AI is. But that's very, very different process that a lot of companies are, it's very new to them in this entire, and we're trying to help them guide it. But we find that is, we're not trying to handcuff a company and ensure revenue for our company. That's really not how we work. Um, and I think it's a new business model too, because if you think about agencies, what better way, you want that stability,
Yeah.
hence you want your retainer.
Yeah.
We're like, yeah, but AI doesn't work like that. So why would we do that? And so we have to adapt to the new world, how this industry works too.
That brings up an interesting point, especially, for the AI consultants out there. How do you bill for this stuff? Because like, when I was doing strategy consulting, I would spend X number of hours for X number of dollars, right? But with this, I can go in with the right prompts and get the same result in
Sure.
maybe a 30-minute session instead of an 8-hour session.
Yeah.
How are you guys? First off, what is that conversation looking like when you're introducing your pricing, and how are you justifying your pricing and yet still feeling like you're being compensated for the value that you've got, not the hours you spent?
Yeah. And we've had that a couple times too. We've met a couple of businesses that, again, back to the, who are like, hey, this solution is going to be this many thousands. And the person's like, oh, could we do that in H? I'm like, what is H? Hundreds. I was like, I kind of laughed. I was like, no, because, and I think with the audience of chief AI officers, right? They're not just necessarily paying for you to develop a strategy using ChatGPT or a custom GPT that you've developed. No, it's everything that you've learned, that you're ideally continuing to learn,
Yeah.
all the knowledge. That's what they're paying
Yeah.
for. Yes, they could go out and build their own AI chatbot, no problems. But can they do it in a way that understands the custom instructions, that understands your privacy, understands vector database, which one's better for this specific use case, custom build, and can they maintain it at the level that, again, reliably works from a 10 to 40% range? That's what they're paying for. And we try to make that known based on the conversation and just how, the business use cases, and making sure we connect it back to the businesses. So from a charge perspective, we obviously charge for the strategy component, the roadmap, and the training, but that also contains us physically going to the company, the
Sure.
departments, and having these 2-3 hour discussions, and then building the plan, but also recommending the pilots and having that roadmap. Because sure, we will use AI to develop, like, that first draft or whatever
Yeah.
draft, but But what you're paying us for is everything that we've learned or continuing to learn added to as context to that, tailored to that business. And then from there, because again, back to position, we want to be that company's AI advisor, not necessarily just here's a bunch of tools
A
implemented.
transaction. Yeah. One of the things that we talked about early on was you were sharing kind of some perspective on people internally, their expectations and you mentioned managing expectations with a leadership team, but what are some of the things that you're seeing when you go into the companies and you're working, you've already had the conversation with the decision makers and they're like, okay, let me introduce you to the department heads, and the department heads get their teams together and you start talking. What are you what are you being most surprised about, I guess, as far as how those conversations are going and people's aptitude and understanding of what's possible?
Usually those meetings are less about, and we will get asked this because we preface the meeting by saying, we're not here necessarily to talk about AI solutions. We just want to know your process, and we want to know any. Let's talk about the boring, the mundane, and the things that you really hate doing, but you'd have to do it week in, week out, month
Yeah.
in, month out,
Yeah.
quarter. Like, let's talk about that. And that usually gets people going. They're like, I hate doing this. I hate doing this. We have to do this. We have to do this. And then it's a lot of like just a lot of frustration about what, and sometimes it's not even in our scope. And this is where we start finding, hey, you actually don't have an AI. Like
Yeah.
this is
You got a
this is more of a
process
strategy.
problem.
This is not, well, how about what? And sometimes we get kind of, we try to get away from that. We don't want to be part of that frustration and the venting. We just want to sit there and listen and see what are their top processes that we can alleviate 10 to 40% on. That's what we're really listening for, but it's a good way to understand what is, what are the issues. And then even we've even solved issues where, oh, when we met with the next group, we just said, hey, did you know this group has this issue? And they're like, oh, we didn't know that. And we're like, okay, maybe we should just talk and have that conversation. That has nothing AI related. That's just you
Sure.
two talking to each other. So that's, and most of the time, the processes are exactly what you would think of any company. So there was one company that we met with. It's an adult themed entertainment company. So, and they were like, they were asking us if we could enable AI to do the craziest things. There's one request where he's like, so you take our president, and the president is like this older gentleman, right? And he's like, yeah, could you make AI take his clothes off? And everyone just looked and we're like, what? And then I was like, I'm not sure. And they're like, we want
Never
to
been
do
asked.
research.
Yeah.
We on these specific keywords. And I'm like, I don't know if you're gonna pass the guardrails for those keywords. But when we actually started digging deep, they're like every single company.
Yeah.
I hate this email that I have to do. I hate this reporting that I have to do every week. I don't even know where these numbers are coming. Like any other business, the exact same. So we always hear the exact same. And it's like, oh, but back to they do it differently, so you can't just apply
Yeah.
the same solution. It's like, but our process is this. Oh, okay. So that's what we're listening for, right? And that's the surprise. It's not surprising. Some of the processes are definitely head scratchers. Like, oh, that's. But just like any business, you've had these processes for years, decades.
Yeah.
They're
And
not
you
going to
quick
make sense.
question, and I'm like, nobody says, why do we do it this way? They're just like, oh, that's how
That's
I
how
got
we've
taught how
always
to
done
do
it.
it. Yeah.
And yeah,
Interesting. It's got nothing to do with AI. It's got to do with the process.
yeah, we just talk about that, and there's any business will have these frustrations.
Yeah.
It's like part of it. So it's kind of a fun conversation to have because sometimes they work it themselves out too. Because they kind of talk and talk and talk to
And
the
they
point where
haven't
like,
really talked about them before,
no,
you asking questions. Yeah.
nope. We just sit there and press record and listen to this stuff.
Interesting. So what I'm hearing is that there are universal activities that occur in business, HR, finance, marketing, sales, operations, blah, 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 that every company does those things, but they do them a little differently. Um, do you guys have you identified patterns to where hey, when we walk into a company, we should probably start with this department first and then have the conversation here because that's going to inform the rest of the conversations we have?
Sometimes in the same industry, but
Yeah,
not all the time, because sometimes the CEO or the president has already something in mind. Like, hey, we have this really big issue with accounting because we keep doing this and we really hate it. And if you could just solve that, that would solve so many. And then you see a bunch of accountants do this. You're like, we really hate this. And it's like, oh, okay. Has nothing to do with any other thing we talked about in another company, but
right.
it's just a big issue for them. And we're like, if we could solve it 10 to 40%, they're like 10%, that would help us. And that's enough to, oh, okay, let's dig in. Let's see if there's a solution that we can try. And most of the time, there usually is an AI opportunity to help them. And that's where we want to start, because then once you scale it, then it's like, oh, sometimes in my mind I have like, hey, this is really cool use case,
Yeah,
but I never bring it out until we've been the
yeah,
foundation of, oh, that's a cool use case. Now that you kind of know how AI works, you're kind of understanding, what do you think of this? And it has a bigger impact because they're like, they connect the dots much better.
right. What is that learning curve? How long is that normally? Are you seeing it's taking the executive teams or the decision makers for them to go, AI can do everything, to then they have this understanding, they're witnessing what's happening in their own company because of what you're doing with their employees and their process. And then they're starting to, like, when they walk the dog, make their own connections, or when they're, driving the car thinking about this stuff. How long is that usually taking for people?
It varies and it depends on the role. Because sometimes we get an email or I don't know, a Slack message. Hey, I had a really cool idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
This. And sometimes it's like, we would have never thought about it because we're not in the space. Like, hey,
Yes.
let's take a look. Or, yeah, that's not happening for like 20 years.
Yeah.
That's a really, I don't even know what that even is, but you will never know. But what's really neat is they're actually thinking about it and they've
Yes.
seen it, but they need to see the actual business use case. They can't just see a bunch of tools that they're using. It has to
Yeah.
come back because they have to see the easiest return on investment is the hours. Oh, I noticed that Kim, our EA, has 10 more hours this month because of this. That might be so small, but because the CEO sees that EA has 10 more hours and can do 10 more hours of work, that is that direct impact that they wish, whenever they have marketing agencies or other agencies, they can see that direct connection. That's what we're looking for right away.
And then they also start saying, well, if she can do that, then he can,
Yes.
and they can, and they
Yes.
can. And they start
Yes.
running those numbers and go,
Yes.
oh, yeah, get Carl in my office ASAP. Yeah.
Yeah. So like this is where like, hey, can you save us more hours on this and this and this? Right.
So, Carl, for those who are listening, and again, the theme of this podcast really was about the art and craft of being an AI consultant. And if you need somebody to tell you you're an expert, I'm telling you you're an expert. So embrace the mantle, please. Um, but what would you tell somebody who has learned this stuff? They've had their career and they're starting to see opportunities
Mhm.
that come from being that recognized AI expert in either their business or their
Yeah.
industry. Where would you tell them to start, as if they're launching that AI consultancy or AI practice?
I was listening to, I don't know if you ever heard of his, he's actually starting his own AI course on it. I love all his content. His name is Gianluca Demaro. He's
I
from, I
don't.
think he lives in Barcelona. He has his own AI course. He's training a bunch of people. But what he said is, and it resonated too, hey, if you're starting and if you're in deep into this stuff, one, go out and build something. It could be an automation, could be, a free chatbot. Go out and build a custom GPT. And once you have that, now go out to, I'm sure most people would know a friend, a neighbor, someone, a family member who has some sort of business, and
Ah,
go out and, hey, could we try do exactly what we talked about, but on a very, very smaller scale? Single problem, one pilot, mini, and try to build that or try to strategize around that. Don't do it for charge, because this is something that then will get you thinking in that way, and
yep.
then you'll start to learn about business and so on. This isn't a new technique. This is what I would have recommended to anybody who, let's say, wanted to start a delivering Google ads maybe a decade ago. Go find that small business, help that person, do it for free, and get the reference, get the referral, because once you get the referral,
Yeah.
then you can do a lot more. But you've got to actually do and go in there, and that's, to me, the easiest way to start.
Love it. Now, you mentioned, that you do a lot of local presentations for business groups and that sort of thing. How did you just reach out to them and say, "Hey, does your audience want to know more about using AI in their business?"
You won't believe how many industry associations, chambers, rotaries are starving for someone to present to their group that's not them, because it's
Interesting.
always hard to find different people. And it's easy because when you say AI, it's in the sphere enough that's like, oh. And usually, especially for rotaries and industry associations, because they're usually talking to themselves, and maybe it's a little bit different now, they may have one or two speakers, they still love to have more of a conversation, and you being part of that. Because if they're always looking for speakers and they're always kind of talking about the exact same thing, then this is a little bit of fresh air. And so that's one.
Nice.
Definitely look at that. But also something simple as, yeah, just sending notes out. So I know a couple people in like a couple people who are kind of doing the same thing we do in like Vancouver and stuff. And they just reached out to, I think, like this what Calgary BC Transit or TransLink, and they just got a meeting. So I was like, there's so many businesses, but don't try to go with the most obvious. There's a bunch of like dental offices,
Sure.
there's a bunch of, and dental associations, college of physicians, places where you would think they're the most. Why would I actually go reach them? It's like, yeah, because there's a whole bunch of doctors and dentists and college and surgeons and people there. Like, what are those places that don't really come to mind when you think of AI? Yeah, even like rec associations,
Sure.
because just like any business still
They're a
has all,
business.
they're
Yeah.
still a business, they have those issues, and AI is so prevalent, they'd love someone to help them out. And don't lead with AI, just lead with, hey, 10 to 40, can we make your business more efficient and productive?
I love
I
that.
have yet to see a business that says no.
Yeah. Carl, this has been fantastic. And man, I am excited about you being more involved in kind of the message and the chief AI officer community. Like just in general. For those and everybody, I want to tell you, like I was telling Carl before we got on here, how much I appreciate his perspective that he shares in LinkedIn. I don't know where else you might share, but I see you primarily on LinkedIn. It's it's pure wisdom when it comes to AI's uh, participation and impact in business, non-technical, right? Like he's not getting into the weeds on the technical stuff. And if you're looking for um, I'll just say thought leadership on AI and business. If you're not following Carl, I would say that you're missing out on a huge free education just from your posts. So outside of LinkedIn, is there any other place where if people want to plug into um, your brilliance, where they can find you?
Yeah, no, I think more so, hey, follow along in our journey. And I think so. I do a lot of the same content on TikTok, so you can find me there. And we actually just launched our show. It's called the AI Accelerator for Business Show,
Nice.
because we wanted to really give that, me and my co-founder just have those conversations about taking AI and actually providing value to business and how they can reach their goals using AI. And if you're trying to, who it's not for is if you want to get the latest news, probably we won't be talking about it.
Yeah. Same here.
But what we will talk about is maybe a week or two or month or 3 later, like, oh, how has this tool, let's say Canvas, and we all haven't even talked about that, how applicable could this be for business? How could this new thing, because there is no way we'd know how the impact of whatever new thing that comes out
On day one.
takes time.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. You can have these takes of it will change this industry, we'll do this. And it was like, you don't know how businesses will adopt this. We all thought Copilot, everybody thought Copilot was the greatest thing on earth.
Yeah.
But it's not. And companies are like, why did we buy this?
Yeah.
Marketing, Microsoft's got to pay their marketing team or whoever, because they're just lining up contract after contract. But like, you got to think about, do you really, really want to have an AI tool for a year? Didn't you want to test it out first to see what your adoption is before signing the lucrative deal? And I guarantee you, Microsoft wants you to sign the deal. They're not going to.
Oh, heck yeah.
They may give you a trial, but like they need you to sign that deal to. And then what's crazy is they make you sign the deal, then they send you a survey, and then it's like, oh, here's a report from Microsoft that 77% of companies are using AI. Like, we talked about that. We're like, really? Because the companies we talk to,
seeing. Yeah.
And we're talking to these businesses every day. So I was like, there's something there. It doesn't match.
Well, I'm excited to subscribe to your show. You've already, the episodes are being released now.
Yeah. So we've, for, on the podcast side, whatever podcast platform you listen to, Spotify, Amazon Music, we've got our first 3 episodes there. On YouTube, we've got our first, we published our first episode. The other 2, I'm trying to stagger them out, but we've recorded 6. We're going to record another 3 to 5 more. We're really trying to keep this weekly and trying to just focus on the business element and how that can help.
I can guarantee our audience will be big consumers of that. Karl, thank you so much, man. I'm looking forward to continuing to support what you guys are doing. And again, I appreciate you sharing your perspective and your time with the audience here. I have mad respect for what you're doing, man.
Oh, thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in to Using AI at Work. Don't forget to subscribe for more conversations about how to use AI at work. And a special thank you to our sponsor, Chief AI Officer, for empowering businesses with AI education and training. Visit their website for a free AI readiness assessment and AI strategy guide to help you get started using AI at work. That's www.chiefaiofficer.com. Special thanks to our producer, Evan DeSaulnier, for making this episode possible. Follow us on Twitter at the handle Using AI at Work, and visit www.usingaiatwork.com for free resources to help you harness AI in your role.